Welcome to the Joy of Cruising podcast with your host, award-winning author Paul C. Thornton, a weekly conversation with the amazing cruisers featured in the Joy of Cruising books, comprised of The Joy of Cruising, Cruising Interrupted, new release The Joy of Cruising Again, as well as other fun, informative global cruise personalities. It's the next best thing to cruising, hearing about cruising from the unique and diverse perspectives of Paul's amazing guests. If you hear about a cruise that interests you, book it at www.thejoyofacation.com or enter to win a free cruise for two. Again, www.thejoyofacation.com. We really appreciate your feedback, so leave us a text. Paul can't reply, but he may read your text on the air.
Hello, passionate cruisers. This is Paul. Hey, just a reminder that you can text me. And as Cheryl points out, I can't respond, but I may read your text on the air. Last week, when I did the podcast about the Soul Train cruise, a listener from Charlotte, North Carolina wrote, "Loved your podcast. Many artists you mentioned bring back wonderful memories. Bucket list, however, it seems to sell out real fast. Take care and congratulations on a great podcast." Thank you, listener from Charlotte, North Carolina. This week on the Joy of Cruising podcast, I'm delighted to welcome Nathalie Holiday, creator of Round Trip Nat, travel content creator and world cruiser. Nathalie notes, "I like to speak on the reality of travel. Nothing is ever perfect, no matter what price point you're traveling at. Someone at a 4-star accommodation can have the same issues as someone staying at a 2-star. I like inspiring people that don't think they have the finances to travel. There's so many options that can help you see at least one of your dream places before you leave this earth. I don't travel like the typical person. We use public transit. We don't book $350 per person excursions for the same things you can see from the ship for free. I'll never forget my first Alaska cruise. We were a group went whale watching and spent an insane amount of money, not one whale in sight, only for all of us to be at the back of the ship and seeing a bunch of whales for free. I chose to travel with my kids instead of leaving them home for adult trips. We are world schoolers. We were before it was a popular term to use, before it was trademarked, and before it became doing online school and traveling once or twice a year. We actually world school. Our sons not only visit destinations, but they also immerse themselves in them. They study them, the culture, traditions, food, politics of the places we visit. They speak with locals, eat in their restaurants, cook in their kitchens, and get a feel, although small, about the places we visit. At the age of 10, Nathalie saw a commercial that showed her favorite band going to Disney World and on a cruise vacation on the Premier Cruise Line, which later became Disney Cruises. This vacation of a lifetime on the very first New Kids on the Block cruise is where her cruise addiction began. Fast forward to April 2024, her dream of visiting all 7 continents with the kids in tow became a reality as she stepped onto Africa to celebrate her 45th birthday in Morocco. January 25 settled another goal of sailing to all 7 continents. Her slogan, "Do what you can while you can." Welcome, Nathalie, to the Joy of Cruising podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
It is great to meet you virtually. How are you doing?
We're doing well, as best as we can be doing in Florida. How are you?
Oh, I am just fine, although moving a little slow. We just got back from the Soul Train cruise, so I won't bore you with details because I'll be doing a podcast all about it in a week or two.
That sounds exciting.
It really was. I can't wait to share our reflections with the listeners. For starters, say something about where you're from, where do you live now, how'd you end up there, anything you are willing to share.
Well, I'm originally from the Chicago, Northwest Indiana area. Born and raised there, moved to Florida, moved back. And after about 2015, I think it was, there was a big snowstorm. I had to clear out a way for our pup to use the bathroom. And I tell you what, that day, and it was actually came up in my Facebook memories a few days ago, was the day that I knew in my heart and soul that the Midwest was no longer for me. And we were traveling, we joke about it, but we were traveling back and forth so much for cruises. I told my husband, well, it's a smart choice because we'll save money on airfare being closer to the cruise ports, which I mean, it's true. We do save money, but it's, you know, it goes elsewhere. So that's how we ended up back in Florida. We're in the Tampa area, right above Tampa. And we enjoy it. The traffic is getting pretty bad, so it's nice to be on a cruise ship more than not. But yeah, we're here in Florida.
Yeah, we lived 9 years in Florida, not too far from you. We were in Fort Myers, and
Okay, we're familiar. Mhm.
so it was nice to go on cruises without having to pay for airfare.
Correct.
Now I retired to North Carolina, and I love it. But the difficult part is I still love to cruise, and we have to fly down, so that's an added expense. But
Hmm.
I'll take it. So I mentioned the New Kids on the Block cruise story in
Yes.
the introduction. What I didn't mention is after seeing that ad, 10-year-old Nathalie actually called the cruise line. So tell us that story.
I was sitting in front of the TV playing with my Transformers because I was never really like a Barbie doll type of girl. And I remember looking and seeing the song. I don't know if I could sing it on the podcast, but they were singing a song and they were, at Disney and just, it looked so fun. And it said, oh, come on, the New Kids on a Block cruise with Premier Cruise Lines. And I can still remember, I can't, the red jacket that Jordan had on, or it was Jordan or Joey. One of them had on this red jacket. And I don't know why that sticks out in my head right now. But a phone number popped up on the screen. And I says, you know what? I'm going to go because I just know my mom's going to take me. Now, I had never even heard of a cruise before. We always did road trips. We come from a traveling family. So, ever since I was 2 weeks old, my parents had me in the back of the window of, their car, and we were doing trips and going places. But I picked up the phone and called the number, and the woman said, honey, how old are you? She said, you have to be 18. And I said, 18? I said, but I really want to go. She said, well, this costs money. And I said, well, I don't know how much money my mom has. I don't think she has a lot. I said, but how much is it? And so I don't remember what she said. But I said, well, hold on, let me call my mom. And my mom was out back, doing the garden or something. And she got on the phone with the woman and looked at me. She said, who is this lady? What's going on? She called you? And the woman says, no, ma'am, your daughter called me. And so they were talking. And before I knew it, my mom said, okay. And now this is back when you went to a travel agency, to pick up your paperwork and, things like that. And I'll never forget telling the kids at school that I was going on a New Kids on a Block cruise. And they were like, oh, you're lying. And, nobody goes on the water. And I mean, we just, people really didn't travel where we were from. They didn't go places or do things like that. Print out a paper that looked like a ticket, like for Disney and for the cruise, and it says congratulations, you're going. But it was a big to do. So I was so excited that my mom actually was able to take us. So it was her, my sister, and I that went.
Wow. So you kind of answered. I was going to ask you, how long was it after that phone call that you got on a cruise?
I don't remember exactly the time frame from the time I called. I do know there was no snow, so it had to be sometime earlier that year. But the cruise was October 10th, 1990, and it was on Premier Cruise Lines, the Oceanic. And here's the thing that is wonderful, and I've had luck like this, well, favor ever since. But the lady asked my mom, which ship do you want to go on? Because there's going to be two. She didn't say, why there was two. She didn't, of course, because, they were making money off of it, but she didn't mention why or which there should be a reason why you chose either ship. I said I wanted to go on that particular ship. I don't know why. And that's the ship that the New Kids on the Block were on. So the people who chose the other ship, they just got to pull up to the Bahamas and, get the concert and things like that. They weren't on there with the band, but we were.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an exciting experience. And so to elaborate on that a little bit, I have photos. I'll actually send you. I'll send you one. But I was walking, just walking around the ship, just exploring and doing my thing, and I see the theater. So I walk down and I see them standing with this backdrop. Well, they had just did a photo shoot with everybody that wanted to do a photo shoot, but it was done, and now they were just doing promo photos. So there was nobody in there but like security, them, a couple cameramen, and I'm a young little girl, so they know I'm not going to do anything. I walked down, and right in front of all them, I vomited
Oh my
because I was
goodness.
seasick.
Oh
Yes,
my goodness.
it was so embarrassing. Like one of the most embarrassing things ever. And you want to know? They didn't say anything. They didn't say, "Oh, gross," and I had on my outfit that I created myself. My mom, I asked her I wanted a jean jacket and jean short set, and I spray painted it and put gems and did everything myself. And they were saying, "Oh, look at your outfit, so cool." They didn't say like, "Oh, gross, you puked everywhere." Or
Wow.
so, and they took photos with me and everything. Yeah, I have those photos, and it's just, I mean, to me, it helped me realize that they were some good guys. So that was an important part of the most memorable part of the trip for me.
If I could just inject this. I'm a big proponent of theme cruising. I think I just mentioned to you, I just got off the Soul Train cruise,
Mm-hmm.
and so before the podcast, I used to write books about cruising, and in my first book, which was called The Joy of Cruising, I had an extended section about theme cruising, and I actually wrote about the New Kids on the Block cruise.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that was so popular and a
Mm-hmm.
perennial sellout. So I wrote a little bit about that cruise. But yeah, theme cruising. You were young, of course, when you first did it, and that was your first cruise, right?
Oh yeah. And then there was a because that's when they still do this, but it was a 4-day cruise, and then you do 3 days at Disney, or you do 4 days at Disney and a 3-day cruise. So we did, I believe that was the 4-day cruise that we did. My mom let me walk around and enjoy myself. Oh, I almost forgot this story. I have to tell you this. Well, there's two different things I want to tell you. So first, I met some other girls, and we were walking around, and we went to the very top area of the ship, and this door opens, and it was a gentleman who walked out, and he's like, "Oh," he was talking to the other girls because I didn't know what was going on. They were a little bit older than me, and they're like, "Oh, so you want to see him?" And I'm like, "Who are you talking about?" Next, who walks out of the door was Jordan Knight, and I about lost it. And I'm like, "Oh my god!" I'll never forget. He had on a white Timberwolves basketball sweatshirt, and he's just standing there talking to us like normal, like if he was just a kid that went to school with us, like just normal, not this famous, guy who everybody wants to touch and be around. And, we didn't crowd him, whatever. We were just talking. I don't remember what the conversation was, but I do remember I did something ignorant, and it has made me hyper aware as a parent about letting the kids just roam around and do what they want on the ships. I thought I was being cool, 10-year-old me, and I lifted myself up onto the banister of the ship. And he's like,
Oh my goodness.
"Yes." And I was sitting on it, like, how you sit on a, park bench, or something. And he said, "Please get down." And I looked at him and I was like, "Why?" He said, "Because if you go overboard, I have to go get you." And I was like, I said, "What?" And I think I slowly got down, like if, it was like somebody's dad telling me. And I was like, I guess that makes sense. It makes sense. But I didn't know. I just wanted to sit there and like, be cool, whatever. And then another point I wanted to bring up, which is fascinating to me till this day. And my mother thought about this until she died. But literally, she would bring it up. there was this gentleman and I was taking pictures of him, and my mom was like, don't waste my film. Because, back in the day, we had that 110 camera and you had to, pay for the film. You had to pay for the developing. Now I'm aging myself because a lot of people don't remember that. And my mom's like, don't waste my film on him. He ain't nobody. You got Donnie Wahlberg over here, sitting and it was just, I was like, Mom, I'm like, that's mean. I'm like, this is Donnie's brother. She's like, well, take pictures of the brother. And I was like, and I looked at him and I was like, can I take a picture with you? And he's like, yeah, come on. And he stood next to me. It was Mark Wahlberg, Marky Mark.
Wow.
So every time he came out with a new movie or she would see him in a commercial, she would say, I wish I can tell that man I'm sorry. She would say that every single time. I wish I could say I'm sorry because, he may have not remembered it, but she remembered it. She remembered because the look on his face was like, dang, but I'm sure she didn't mean to, but she was excited and she just was, I don't know, but she thought about that for all those years later. Yeah.
Just for the few listeners
Mhm.
who are not familiar with New Kids on the Block, the names that Natalie's mentioning, Jordan Knight and the Wahlbergs, they were members of the group. So, probably some of our listeners are not real familiar with.
Well, if they're not familiar with New Kids on the Block, they're still familiar with the Wahlbergs. I guarantee
Sure.
that because
Yep,
Blue
yep,
Bloods and,
yep, yep.
Mhm.
Sounds like your initial impressions of cruising were very positive, except the getting seasick part. Did you get sick all the time, or that just was a?
No, that was one time. And the only other time, because, we were cruising monthly for years. And there's right after COVID, when we went back cruising, we did back-to-back Alaskan cruises. We got so sick. It was on Celebrity Millennium. I'll never forget it. The captain had everybody staying in the cabin because everybody was getting ill because it was so bad. And I want to say, or remembering myself, those are the only two times I ever recall being seasick.
I think I know the answer to this question. On your first cruise, were you hooked immediately, or did cruising have to grow on you?
Oh, I was immediately hooked. My mother was as well, because that was her first cruise. And she booked another cruise. I want to say maybe 2 months later, and she went without us, and I was crushed. I thought she did. I
Wow.
thought she didn't love me. I thought I did something wrong. I still have she went on a Carnival cruise. I still have the postcards she sent me saying, Natalie, be good, and I love you, and I miss you. And I was just like, I don't even know why I kept that because I was so salty about it. But I still have it.
We'll be right back.
The Joy of Cruising podcast guests receive a gift sponsored by GigSky of a 3 gigabyte cruise plus land data package valued at $60. Relying on ship Wi-Fi is slow, unsecure, and sometimes not available. And at foreign ports, travelers don't want to pay their carriers high fees. GigSky provides a solution that will save them a significant amount of money. To get your own data package usable on the ship or in ports, here is my link to GigSky. https://gigsky.pxf.io/NLOXOR. This can be found in the show notes below. For a 10% discount, use the code Joy of Cruising.
So how soon did you cruise again?
I didn't cruise again until I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I can't remember, that was a Carnival cruise. And then after that was my first cruise. I went with a boyfriend. I talked him into it. And I actually, we worked at the same place. And I was telling him about it. And he was like, I don't know about going in the middle of the ocean. Because, some people, they still have that mentality. Well, I'll be in the middle of the ocean. I can't swim. And I try to explain to them, if it comes to that, you won't be able to swim anyway. Nobody will be. So, but I explain to people when they say they can't afford, I know I'm jumping, but I have to point this out. We were young and we saved our money. Okay. Do you know how I saved my money? I did not spend my change. So I was able out, it was $543. That's how much that cruise cost. And I saved it by saving my change. And I tell people it's that simple sometimes. Like, you go, if you cut back here or there, you can do things like that as a young person. And I encourage it. And for a while, for after that, I didn't spend my $5 bills. Was it hard? Yes. Did I have to cut back? Yes. Even back then when things were less expensive, I still cut back because that's what I wanted to do.
It sounds like starting with that 10-year-old cruise, and then you cruise quite a bit growing up over the years. Do you have a favorite cruise line or cruise ship that you're willing to single out?
Well, I've thought about this question and I let people know I have favorites for different reasons. My favorite for Alaska cruises will be Norwegian. And that's because as world schoolers, Norwegian, in my opinion, offers the most educational enrichment and variety on board during those sailings. So that would be for my Alaska. Like they had the most memorable Alaska sailing I have is the Rangers crawling up the side of the ship to come show everybody on board, bones and furs from Glacier National Park. For, I would say, wow factor, I would go with Celebrity.
Mm-hmm.
Celebrity is one of my favorites because I'm not a fan of older ships, but they still have one of my favorite ships that's older, which is, Constellation. Super clean, everybody's friendly. The rooms are small, just like all older ships, but it's just something about that ship is comforting. It usually sails out of Tampa. But Celebrity just does it for me with their newer ships and the food. I don't care what anybody says. The food on Celebrity is great. We actually been kind of like knocking out some back-to-backs with, Royal Celebrity, and Royal is great for a lot of things. They used to be my favorite, but when it comes to the food, that's it for me. MSC entertainment, second to none. But when it comes to the food, I was eating a lot of pizza, so.
Well, sounds like we have some things in common. I've only been to Alaska once. I loved
Mhm.
it. I don't normally repeat destinations on purpose. Now, I've been to, like Costa Maya and Cozumel and Nassau, many
Mhm.
times because, most cruises in the Caribbean, Bahamas and Caribbean are going to stop in those places. But
Mhm.
I went to Alaska, fell in love, and my wife and I decided on the way home, on the flight home, we're coming back. And so that one time that I did go to Alaska, it also was on a Norwegian ship. So we have that in common. I went on the Norwegian Spirit, and it
Mhm.
was great. And just like you, the Rangers came aboard the day we went through Glacier National Park, and so they came aboard and they did a lot of presentations and all that. And then, like you, I agree. Celebrity food is awesome, and in fact, I go to specialty restaurants. I used to never go to specialty restaurants,
Mhm.
um, but I do now. But Celebrity is a cruise line that if even if you are not into specialty restaurants, their buffet is great. Their main dining room. So and then
I can agree with that.
yep,
Mhm.
yep. And then you mentioned MSC, and I had some issues with MSC, but I will tell people no one has better pizza, or I haven't tasted better pizza yet than MSC's pizza.
Right. Now, see, there that's to be expected because if they had terrible pizza, that would be the end of them because they're a European cruise line, Italian cruise line. And it's just with they do, which I don't think a lot of people know, but on your first MSC cruise, they will match your status to another cruise line. So at that time, I was only sailing Carnival, which I'll tell you that story why I don't sail Carnival anymore. I was only selling Carnival, so they matched my status to their top tier status, and we were able to go to the captain's events and everything else. And they do the lineup just like every other cruise line. And I saw the chef, and my husband looked at me and he said, don't you dare." And I said, "I have to." And so I was like, "Excuse me, chef, I have to ask." And one thing everybody knows about me, my husband is a very quiet person. He doesn't, he doesn't talk about folks, and he, minds his business. And when he tells me to do something, I listen, because he doesn't often tell me to do anything. So when he does, I listen. This is the one few times in our, 25-year relationship that I can tell you that I did not listen, because that's how bad the food was. So
Wow.
I said, "Chef, I have to ask you, excuse me, why do you put gravy on everything that you send out of your kitchen?" And he says, "Oh, well, it makes it taste better and it keeps it warm." I said, "But our food is still coming out bland and cold." And my husband's just like, "Please," like, he's looking at me. So I didn't go much further than,
As your husband curled up in the corner.
no, I'm no, he's not gonna curl up. He just was giving me like daggers, like, because he thought it, because he's a chef himself, so he thought it was rude of me to do that. But I thought, if nobody speaks up and says anything, how are they supposed to know? But in the dining room, everybody was sending even their steaks back, everything. They served me a steak with a gritty chocolate gravy. And when I say chocolate, it was not only chocolate and color, it was chocolate, like a chocolate brown gravy. So I want you to think of melted chocolate and brown gravy mixed together, and not your mama's brown gravy, like out of a can brown gravy. Gritty, just gross. So everybody was sending it back. I mean, every table I saw that ordered it sent it back. The waiter brings it out to me again. I said, "Could you please bring it with no gravy on there?" They still brought it out again. So after that, I was just like, okay. But yeah, like I said, I didn't mean it to be rude, but I wanted to let him know that people were not okay with with how the food was being served. So I find that, more people will complain to themselves or amongst their table mates and never speak up. And that is, I think we'll address that later. I saw one of the questions, but what I wanted to say is, when you're on a cruise, if something is not right, it's not complaining. You paid your money, your hard-earned money, for that vacation. And for you to complain to your table mates or, people you meet out on the Lido deck, they can't do anything about it. You need to let the people who are in a position to do better do better. Let them know, "Hey, when the waiter comes, how was your food?" "Oh, it was great." And as soon as they turn around, you're spitting it out. That's not, let them know so they can fix it for you, so they can fix it for everybody.
Now, two things you said I want to follow up on. You mentioned you stopped cruising on Carnival. To tell that story.
Yes. I met a friend he's in the travel community as well. His name is Harold Banks. I met him online, and then we ended up meeting in person, and, we became friends. He would tell me, because at that time I was so loyal. I mean, you couldn't tell me anything else. Besides those Norwegian cruises I would take to Alaska, only Carnival. I didn't want to look at any other direction. And so I was on the phone with him one day, and he's like, "Nathalie, can I ask you a question?" And I was like, "Yeah, what?" "Why do you sell Carnival? Why do you only sell Carnival?" And I said, "Well, that's what I like. They know me, I know them. And he says, "Just do me a favor, just one time." He's like, "Just try Royal, try Celebrity." I said, "Wow, so I'm not doing Celebrity." I said, "That's not my lifestyle, and I don't. He says, "Just try it." So I booked a Royal Caribbean cruise with my son, Guy. And we missed the ship. That's a whole nother story. It was Mother's Day sailing. I'll never forget it. We decided to go to a graduation first. We missed the sailing because we didn't take into account Miami traffic. So the next sailing I was able to get on, uh, I walked onto the ship and I called him and he didn't answer. Now, something about Harold Banks, he's always going to answer your call. Okay, he's one of that type of friend where he's going to answer your call. I called him right back, and he said, you're on the ship, aren't you? And I was like, yeah. He said, how is it? And I was just flabbergasted. The moment, so to answer your question, Paul, the moment my son was ice skating in the middle of the ocean on a ship, I knew Carnival had nothing else for me.
All right. Okay. So it wasn't anything necessarily negative about Carnival. It just was something so positive about
I couldn't go back.
Royal Caribbean. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
I just couldn't go back. And I had just came off the Vista. Like I'm one of those longer cruises. I don't there's nothing wrong with the 3-4 day, cruises, but that's just not my style. I do the 8 days, the 10 days, the 18-day cruises. And so I just came off transatlantics from the Vista, and we try to jump on those longer sailings, and then we'll stay on board for the next sailing afterwards. But after doing this sailing, I don't know, because Vista, that's a new ship. It was, it was nice, but yeah, I don't know. It just, something was about it. And then after that, a couple of sailings, I tried Celebrity, and I haven't been back.
Another thing I wanted to return back to, you mentioned a term that I suspect is fairly new to some of my listeners. Though, well, let me speak for myself. It's fairly new. It's new for me. You said, I'm a world schooler. Say some more.
So we started off. Do you want to hear the whole story, or you just want to hear what world schooling is?
Tell me whatever you would like.
Okay. So we started off in a world where, we were very academically led. My kids, even in a snowstorm, I was digging, because my husband, he worked earlier. So he would dig a path. By the time it was time for the kids to go to school, I had to go dig us out again. That's how adamant we were about getting the kids to school. Well, I had an opportunity to do our first transatlantic cruise. I decided, since I'm over there, we might as well look around, see what's going on in the area. That's how I like to talk. We look around. I'm talking about going to different countries. I just call it looking around. The principal gave me a hard time. We sat down at a round table with my son's teachers, the social worker at the school, and the principal. He just was acting like I was taking my kid to go party, and, we were going to just ignore life and have a good old time. And his teacher, Mr. Yvonne, my son's favorite teacher ever, said, can I respectfully say he's going to see things that I've been teaching about for years and I'll never get to see? What's the problem of him going? And then when we left, because I know the lady's not there anymore, so she won't be affected. When we left out of that meeting, the social worker pulled me to the side. She says, why don't you just withdraw him? If he's giving you this much trouble, just withdraw him. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. She's like, withdraw him with the intent to homeschool. And then if you want to, when you come back, you could just put him back in and he won't be responsible for any of the work or anything, any missed days. And I said, well, do I have to wear a jean dress and wear my hair in a bun? And she's like, what do you mean? The only thing I ever heard about homeschooling was the Duggars. And so I thought, do I have to dress like that? And she's like, no. So her sister-in-law was one of the leading advocates in the state of Indiana for homeschooling. You wrote books, and I just was like, okay. So I did my research, and that's what I ended up doing. I ended up withdrawing him. And then when we came back, I put him in. But the education he learned on that trip and the things he brought back, like for his teachers, was overwhelmingly a great response for him. The next year, we wanted to do something similar. So it became a problem. And I decided I wasn't going to let somebody who wasn't financing me or, who wasn't, a part of my household dictate how I was going to raise my child and where my child was going to be able to go and explore. There's more than just Northwest Indiana for a child to see. And so we decided to homeschool. And it took a while for us to, get our bearings and get it together. But then I realized there's a group of people out there that actually do what I was trying to do year round. And it was called world schooling. Well, once you find out what you want to do in life and what you want to be a part of, I encourage people to reach out to communities that are already doing it, because found out so much. We were enriched so much by people who had been doing this for years. Okay, homeschooling and world schooling is not new. People have always done it. It's just not glamorized so much. Well, now I feel like it is. Like, you have a lot of content creators that'll say, oh, we world school, but their kids are doing like K-12 online or things like that. That's not world schooling. Well, not in the world schooling community. We don't consider that world schooling. But, the kids, they research everything before they go. They learn about the currency, the culture, the habits, the food, lifestyle, their techniques, their financial situations, their leadership roles, how their companies, if they have dictators or, they learn everything before they go. And then while they're there, they involve themselves in it. We're not going to McDonald's and eating. We're finding somebody's mom's, place. We're trying to, meet people and hang out where they hang out. That's a part of world schooling, in my opinion.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard that term. Here I am, much, much older than school age, and I like to consider what I do is world schooling because of myself. Because when I go
Mm-hmm.
to a
Absolutely.
destination, I learn so much. And it also influences me to when I get back, to do further research. I remember I went to not the first time, the only time I've been to Paris. And so, we went on a tour, an excursion of the Eiffel Tower. And I was so fascinated about the story. It was built as a temporary structure for the World's Fair. And I was intrigued by what I heard during that tour, and it was so informative, that when I got back, until my next cruise came around, all I did was read stuff about the Eiffel Tower. So here I am, old me, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
mature me, still learning,
But there's
learning
no
things that
age.
were touched upon when
Right.
I was in grade school.
And there's no age for someone to stop learning. I love to learn still. And another thing I'd like to touch on about homeschooling or world schooling, people want to say, oh, well, you have to have a teacher's degree and you have to have this. Absolutely not. I can't tell you how many times I've learned things from teaching my kids that I was never taught in high school. I was never taught in college. And here I am learning and then teaching them. It's a family effort. So even if you feel like you may not have time, there's always an opportunity to make that time. These kids, you have to think you're not going to have them forever. And the way the world is set up, it's sad to say, but they're growing up faster than they did when we were younger. They're at the age of 5 or 6, they're starting to play. They're not playing with dolls anymore. They're on iPads or, they're playing video games. So as much opportunity as you can take to be with your children, you should do that. I encourage you to do that. The more opportunities you take to spend with your kid, even, hey, let's go, get a pop at the gas station, go for a ride. Let's go, walk the track at the park. Things like that is less opportunity for somebody else to get their claws into them.
Now, you mentioned a couple of cruise highlights. You talked about Alaska. You talked, of course, about your the New Kids on the Block cruise story. Is so funny. 10-year-old Nathalie calling the cruise line. Give us a couple and I know you cruise so much, but share a few cruise highlights over the years.
I'd have to say most recently, like last year, we did the Antarctica sailing.
Oh, wow. That's
And
on my bucket list.
yes, I highly encourage people to do that as well. And you'll always have those, well, you didn't touch land people versus you're in the area people. Technically, once you sail into the Antarctic
Right.
waters, you're in Antarctica. So it doesn't matter if you touch land or not. You're breathing the air, you're absorbing the atmosphere, and some people, rightfully so, don't care to damage which is what is already, at risk. So I'm one of those people. I rather enjoy the view and not really. So when you go on sailings, it's a good idea to want to meet people, to, you know, uh, explore the type of environments that you normally wouldn't, because that's why you vacation. That's why you get out and see something. I wanted to tell you a story about how on my Antarctica sailing, there was a couple, and I saw them a couple times on the ship, but I didn't speak, or they didn't speak to me. We just, hey, how you doing? That's how you do sometimes. On my cruise last month, which was almost a year to the date, guess who I see in the buffet on the other side of the world? This same couple. Now, they were on my Antarctica sailing, and now they're on my sailing where I'm going to finish my seventh continent, sailing continent to Africa. Isn't that something?
Wow.
You see how cruise circles work?
Yes.
So that's like one of the things I would say too is once you start doing a certain type of sailing, you start running into the same type of people. Okay. But going back to the Antarctica sailing, to see all of the penguins and the whales, it's the icebergs, beautiful, the colors, it just was gorgeous. And to be there and just absorb everything in was something I'll never forget. Another I'd have to say was we did a couple of the trans-Pacific sailings. You want to talk about rough waters. We had one of the front, we had a 2-bedroom suite in front, and we didn't pay a suite price. So there's a trick to getting that cabin, but we didn't pay. So I want people to know that, because I advocate for budget friendly cruises and like budget friendly sailings and things like that. But the water was so bad. It was hitting. Now we were on deck 7. It was hitting the dining room window on the ship. It was
Wow.
overflowing. Yes, it was that bad. So that was an experience I'll never forget. And it wasn't really like a negative experience. It was kind of fun afterwards, talking about it and thinking about it. But being able to sail to Australia from Hawaii was wonderful. New Zealand, I'm a big landscape history buff. So being able to see natural habitats and just nature's beauty, what God made, that's it for me. That's what I just love it. New Zealand is one of the most beautiful places I've seen, you know, so that was a highlight for me. Also, Tahiti, not Tahiti itself, sorry, that part of the sailing. We went to the island of Moorea, and the people there are so kind. I can't even begin to tell you how beautiful it was. They cooked for us on the beach and, barbecue, just explained to us their history and their culture. The woman who was the leader of the group spoke 7 languages fluently. I mean, it's something to experience. Another I was also, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, so for a while there, I was sailing to places that had Game of Thrones scenery. So, where they filmed, like Dubrovnik, Croatia, the city walls, that's King's Landing, Malta. So, Malta in the springtime with all the beautiful flowers is what I feel my heaven will look like. Just absolutely gorgeous. Um, I just can't think of any other place that I've been with just the aesthetics that I just love it there. Absolutely beautiful.
Let's shift gears, Nathalie, and let's talk about your brand, Round Trip Nat. Who is Round Trip Nat?
Round Trip Nat is somebody who wants to encourage people of all abilities, all lifestyles, all incomes to travel. There are no restrictions on going places. You can, whether it's cruising, road trips, day trips, backyard trips, anywhere, exploring your town, places you've never been to, in your county, do that. That's what I try to encourage people to do. I advocate for budget friendly travels because even if you have money or not, just because you have money doesn't mean you want to spend it, right? You don't have to spend it. So,
Right.
but really I aim for people who have limited incomes or the ones who maybe don't have limited incomes. They just don't know where to start. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to do it. So I try to say, hey, when you go here, try this. Or when you're in this city, watch out when you're walking, these areas. Or to simply just encourage them and let them know, hey, when you're on a cruise, look at all the food you get. Look at all, the entertainment there is. Just trying to encourage people. For since maybe 2010, people have been telling me to, oh, you need to do a blog. I didn't know how to get started with that. I had read a couple mom blogs and things like that, but I just was intimidated, I guess you can say. Didn't know how to do it. I started posting my pictures on my personal page, and people would say, "Oh, you need to make a page and just show all your pictures and encourage people to go." And then my mom said something to me. I was planning on going on a cruise that went to Israel. And my mom says, I want to go. Now, something you may not know about my mom, she suffered from lipidemia and lymphedemia, which I suffer from as well. That's why I started doing all abilities friendly travel encouragement. But so she couldn't get around. And so when she says, I want to go, we all knew she couldn't go because she was wheelchair bound and, bed bound at this time. And I said, okay, well, when I get there, I'm going to find internet so I can go, show you live, like how it is. Um, and then she would say, oh, take me with you. So that's why I now say, hey, if you can't go, let me take you. Um, I encourage people I try to encourage people of all levels. There's people that travel in wheelchairs. There's people that are paraplegic that travel. You can go. It's all about your mental stability, whether you really choose to do this, and it's also why I advocate I guess you can say my slogan, do what you can while you can. Don't wait till you retire. Don't wait till your kids are older. Don't wait until your job this or do it now. Don't let that PTO add up. My husband just retired last year, and I wanted to, I wanted to look over his PTO. I seen somebody he worked with had 2,000 hours of PTO. 2,000.
Now, for the listeners, most of you, I'm sure, know this, but just anytime I hear an acronym, that's personal time off.
Yes. So that means that person has not taken any vacation time in years. And so usually a company will make you sell it or they'll try to buy it back, but some companies will let you accrue it. So his company, you could accrue it. And I just could not believe that. And also how you accrue PTO is by your hours. So that means the more hours you work, the more PTO you get. So this person was basically like killing themselves at work and not taking any vacation time. I don't know what their circumstances are, but in life, you have to take care of yourself. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot pour from a cup that has a hole in the side or, leaking from the bottom, because you're going to drain yourself. And then what does your family have? Nothing. And I would tell my husband, I want the mic, not the money. I'm okay with having less as long as I have you. I don't want him, he's 62. He wanted to work 3 more years. Absolutely not. Um, the people at his job were calling me the enforcer because I wanted him to retire earlier. But I believe you should live your life and do what you can while you can. Go while you can walk. Go while you can feed yourself. Go while you can, lift yourself up and off the bus. So just do it. Don't wait until it's too late. And then you can only, go for 2 days because you have to get back for dialysis. It's like, live your life.
There you go. Talk about becoming Round Trip Nat. When was it? When was the brand formed? And what was your goal or purpose in starting it? I think I have a sense for that.
So I started off what Nat describes.
Uh-huh.
And what I wanted to do was make that a whole well-rounded page where I not only talked about travel tips, but I also talked about, tips you can do at home to help you, better yourself for your next travel experience, or how you can save and, opportunities outside of travel to help you get to your, travel destination, your travel goals. I decided after, I want to say right before I went to Antarctica, that I was going to change the brand and make it Round Trip Nat, because I was at that time I had did a round trip around the world. So we left Florida and we flew to Hawaii. Well, we flew to LA. We were supposed to do an event there. The event got canceled. It was a show. It was for a cruise show. Then we flew to Hawaii. From Hawaii, we took a sailing to Australia, so which had us crossing the Pacific Ocean. From that sailing from Australia, we went to Abu Dhabi. From Abu Dhabi, we went to Italy. And from Italy, we went and jumped on Celebrity Edge and took Celebrity Edge back to Florida. So we literally had went around the world. And I thought to myself, well, you know what? That's round trip. We did a round trip to Florida, around the world. So that's when I changed my name to Round Trip Nat. And I wanted to encourage, because that was at a time where if you got sick on the ship, the insurance kicked in and they were taking care of people. Well, my son actually caught COVID on day 7 of our 19-day sailing. So that opened my eyes to a lot of things for people who try to say they don't need travel insurance.
Mm-hmm.
That travel insurance, I know I said I didn't want to talk about finances, but that travel insurance took care of the majority of our trip because of the missed ports he did, and he had to, miss, and a couple other things that went into account. So I'll always advocate for people to learn more about travel, learn more about what's possible in travel. It's not just about cruising. It's not just about, getting in your car and driving to some destination. Learn what you can do while you're doing that. Like you're on a cruise. Okay, so you don't just wait for the port. There's several things to do while you're on board. There's classes, and there's educational lectures, there's entertainment, there's trivia, there's games, and then there's drinking and eating. So it's like this, learn about what's available on your vacations when you're going someplace. So that's what I want to do. I want to tell people all aspects of travel. When you're going to, say, Barcelona, we went over New Year's. The cheapest hotel that I found that I was willing to stay at was $250 a night. So what did I do? I went and looked at hostels. Now, at our age, you're like, a hostel? Yes, a hostel, because you could have private rooms in a hostel, and they have private bathrooms, everything. I found a hostel that was so amazing. The people were friendly, they had activities, and there was all ages there. So hostels are no longer just for the, teenage backpackers or, the young adult backpackers. I try to tell people about that as well. Move on from that a little bit. I want to tell you a story about my girlfriend from high school. We went to London, and I always do itineraries. She's looking at the itinerary. She's like, girl, you spelled hotel wrong. She's like, that's because she's one of those people that she's like spells everything, pronunciation, punctuation, everything. It has to be like top tier. And she's like, you spelled hotel wrong. Fix it and send it back. I said, no, I didn't spell it wrong. And so when she went and looked, she was like, what? When we got there, she was so impressed. There was gold on the ceiling, the thing that goes along across the ceiling, the corners, the panels.
Yeah, I know what you're referring.
Yeah. So chandelier in our room, everything. She's like, this is a hostel? I was like, yes. She's like, because there's a balcony and you look out, it's, a beautiful church across the street. Just, it was really nice. And she was impressed. The hostel, it would cost $66 a night.
What platforms are you on? And tell our listeners how they can follow Round Trip Nat on social media.
I would love for you to follow me on Facebook. That's where I'm most active. Now, my YouTube, I primarily will be using for shorts and cabin tours. I host events on board when I do my sailings. So cabin crawls are a big part of that. And I like for people to see, the different ships, the different cabin types, reels. That's what I'll be putting on my YouTube. And I'll be starting to do that here soon. Also, Instagram. So my Instagram, everything from my Facebook goes to my Instagram. So if you could follow me there, that'll be wonderful. But I have some viral videos on my Facebook that I think people will enjoy because I don't post those cutesy little reel videos. I post real videos, which means, if something's going on in the ship, I'm going to post about it. If, like the power went out on our last cruise, oh my gosh. And people were saying, oh, what are you complaining for? We are in the middle of the ocean with no lights, engine, no AC, no hot water. But we were scared and I posted about it. And that was interesting because the guest services actually called me and said, oh, we saw your video because somebody tagged celebrities CEO or something in the video. Guest services called me and said, we saw your video. Are you okay? We know you're scared. And, what can we do for you? But she did say it like with a sarcastic undertone. But it was okay because I was like, well, it is what it is. And I'm still going to film.
Let's talk a little bit about the future. What cruises or travel do you have booked?
So my next sailing will be a European sailing. I just have 2 books so far, which is a summer sailing and then a transatlantic. We're excited about both of those. This is unusual for us because, like I said, we were sailing every month and then we went to every other month.
We are starting a homestead, a farm, and we are moving forward with that. It's called 3/8 Farm at Chocolate Chip Pines. And we're so excited about it because we want to start a small piece of this earth where we can give back and flourish and teach others that they can do that as well. My son will be hosting farm to table cooking classes for young adults and kids, so that way they can learn to eat what they have and what they can grow instead of buying things out of boxes and packages and cans.
Processed food.
Healthier, correct. Just so they know that you don't have to have a lot of land to grow what you eat. You can use your window seal, your bedroom seal, your porch, your balcony, anything. So we're eager to do that. We want to have outdoor hospitality. That's going to be our brand, outdoor hospitality, where we have, these classes. We host people for, wellness and themed retreats, fishing and fun weekends. And I also, what's been laid on my heart to do is have budget-friendly weddings for people. I don't believe people should have to go to the Justice of the Peak or the courthouse to get married. What if you can't afford a big, beautiful wedding, but you want to have your family together? So we want to provide that. I have all kinds of wedding decor left over from when I used to plan weddings and events and things. So I want to offer that at a small price, and they can have a nice wedding. So that's something that my husband and I have thought about, prayed about, and that's what we're going to do as well. So like I said, that'll be called 3/8 Farm at Chocolate Chip Pines. So it's going to be 2 different things going together.
Where is this located?
That's going to be in North Florida.
Okay.
We're going to be near a highway. So 6 miles off the highway, private area. We want to provide a space where everybody feels welcome and everybody feels safe and has the opportunity to enjoy nature, animals, farming, anything they would like to do on their weekend joining us. So that's near and dear to our hearts. And we want to let people know that we have traveled the world and now we want to bring the world to us. So if that's something that you feel like you're interested in, we're here for your outdoor hospitality adventures.
When can listeners expect that to commence?
So right now we are still clearing land. We got set back because one hurricane hit our land and just devastated it. And then Hurricane Milton came and devastated our home. So we are still recuperating at the moment, and we have started clearing the land. So we are anticipating opening by the end of the year.
We should think in terms of 26.
High hopes of opening and having visitors join us in 2026.
Now, will there be? And you might have said this, and I missed it. What are the residential arrangements? Are there residential? Is it like a bed and breakfast? How's that work?
So we're going to be offering raw camping, which means you can bring your tent, your RV, what you would like to do. We also have a couple cabins available that you can rent. We also want to be available for people that are driving through, doing road trips, and they decide that they would like to, stop over for a couple of days, maybe fish, maybe visit animals, learn how to farm, learn how to garden.
Well, best wishes with that. It sounds like an ambitious and intriguing venture. So I'll certainly look forward to following your progress. And once you're ready to kick it off, come back on the show and talk about it.
Oh, that would be wonderful. We want to be able to show people that you can go from city life to rural life and enjoy it. So this new venture that we're doing is really bringing everything that we learned with travel to one spot. Hospitality, the cooking, the culture, things that we learned in Morocco about farming, cooking techniques that we have learned from a Saudi chef, just different living techniques that we learned in Norway, with cottages, fishing techniques that, we learned, say, in Japan. It's just we've learned all of this as part of our world schooling, and we're going to bring it to fruition here in Florida.
So you've experienced some great destinations. You've traveled the world. Do you even have a cruising or travel bucket list?
I think everybody should have a bucket list after their bucket list.
Say some more. What do you mean by that?
Well, I have been, so in 2023, we did 23 countries. In 2024, I finished my 7th continent. And then 2025, I sailed to my 7th continent. But there are still a few places that I have not been that I would like to go to. I have not been to Indonesia, believe it or not. And that's one of the places I think I would like to go spend like maybe a month there. And then I'd like to sail to Greenland because both sailings I had were canceled. So those are the 2 places I have left, I would say, on my bucket list. I'm not in a hurry to get there because I'm still young. So I have to save something for the future. And I laugh because our 16-year-old is on his 6th continent. He didn't go on the Asia sailing with us, but now he wants to go. So we're going to do a sailing to Japan with him in 2026. I told him maybe he should wait because he's 16. He has his whole life. Maybe he said, nope. I want to do it now. I want to do what I can while I can. And I thought about that, and it made me proud as a parent to say, hey, he could be wanting to do other things, but he wants to knock this out so he can say he sailed all 7 continents as well. That's part of my bucket list, is to see him sail his 7th continent.
So when not traveling, Natalie, what do you do in your me time?
Okay, you're going to laugh, but I look at travel stuff. I do. I'm one of those people. I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm older. I'm getting older. I wake up in the night, go to the bathroom. I will pull out my phone and look at flights. I'll look at cruises, travel, and that's it. And now farming. So yeah, I spend my money on flights or seeds.
That's it. Well, Natalie, this has been an intriguing and interesting conversation. Before we let you go, we usually ask our guests to close out, a conversation. I don't like to even call this an interview. I like to think of it as a conversation. Uh,
Absolutely.
we usually ask our guests some light or even fun cruise questions. So this first one is I get a lot of great ideas from guests. What's your favorite cruise drink and cruise food?
My favorite drink, some call it, like a play off of a French martini, where we call it a Round Trip Nat. It's vanilla vodka with Chambord, cranberry juice, and a squeeze of lime. It has to have the squeeze of lime. It's shaken up just like a Cosmo, or, it is delicious, and it has to be absolute vanilla vodka.
I love French martinis, by the way.
Ooh, just tasty, right? This is something about them. Yeah. My favorite cruise food.
Traditions, what I mean by that is there's certain things people eat only on cruise ships.
So the only thing I eat on a cruise ship and not on land is the escargot. And I'll try it the first night, and if it's not how I expect it, then I won't have it the rest of the cruise. Now, my cruise tradition is the first night, I always go to dinner on the first night to the dining room, and I'll order a dinner size Caesar salad and a piece of salmon on top.
Are you a specialty restaurant person at all?
I do like Tuscan Grill or for celebrity. I enjoy the steak with the beautiful view of the wake in the background. There's nothing more calming and serene than watching that wake while you're having dinner. Also, there's a specialty restaurant called La Petite Chef. It's when they shine an image onto your plate and they do this whole cartoon like anime setup. Then, whatever the chefs on your plate made, they bring that dish out to you. So it's really cool, unique experience. And I feel like that's one of the specialty restaurants that's worth paying for over and over. Besides that, I'm not into the specialty. Okay, I take that back. Royal Caribbean has a restaurant called Jamie's Italian. Now yeah, so there's Jamie's Kitchen and there's Jamie's Italian. The one that has the pizzeria in it, they have this pistachio pancetta that is out of this world. And when I tell you I have not had a better dessert than that, the maitre d' brought it to me in the main dining room a couple times on our transatlantic sailing because I was just raving about it so much. He said, "You keep talking about it, I'm going to bring you some." And he did. And I was just so grateful. It was so good. But yeah, that's one of my favorites as well for Royal Caribbean.
All right. Second question. What's your most wonderful or memorable or funniest or even most embarrassing cruise or port experience?
We have been waiting to tell this story for years. But my husband and I were sitting, we were on a celebrity cruise. We were going, it was a trans-Pacific, so we must have been going to Australia. We're sitting by the window in the buffet, and it was kind of packed. And this lady comes and stands behind me. And now mind you, you have to think about when you're at tables in the buffet, everybody's sitting closely, you can hear everybody talking. She's an older woman. And when I say older, I remember her looking and really like just resembling Rose from the Titanic. Okay. Do you have that visual in your head? Okay.
Yes.
She had on all white, linen dress, flowy dress with a, cream hat. And she's holding her plate, her frail hands. And she's like, "Excuse me, I would like to sit here." And I was like, "Oh, are you okay, ma'am?" I'm like, "Are you not feeling well?" And I started getting up. She's like, "Well, don't you work here? Should you be sitting here?" And I looked at my husband
Wow.
immediately, Paul. Everybody got quiet. Everybody in the area got quiet. And they're looking at her. And then, of course, they're starting mumbling to each other. And I said, "Excuse me?" She was like, "Well, why are you sitting here where the guests sit?" I says, ma'am, what makes you think that we work here? And then she looks at my husband and looks back at me. She's like, well, don't you? And I says, no, we're guests as well. I said, but if you're welcome to sit here if you don't feel like. I said, I'll get up. Well, and then somebody else got up. They're like, no, sit here. And they were shaking their head and people were like, what's wrong with this? I was like, no. Just maybe she's confused. But I felt like she was asking us if we work there because we're the only ones who look like us. Yeah. And I just like that has lived in my head rent free for all these years because I still cannot believe that that happened. And it just was, I don't know. And then when we got up and started leaving, people like, people usually don't even touch you like when you're on cruises. But a couple people grabbed us and was like, I am so sorry that happened. We're embarrassed for her. And, it just, she was from Australia. And it just was memorable for me for that reason, because we just never in our cruising experienced anything like that all these years. Yeah, it just, reminds me that it takes all people, and like not all people have been exposed to life, I guess. I don't know.
Wow, I would say that's pretty memorable.
The first time I walked onto a Royal Caribbean ship, that's very memorable for me because it was Allure of the Seas. And I just had never seen a big, grand ship like that,
Yeah, Oasis class.
Yeah. So, you had the car in the middle there, and it just was something, like I said, I was used to Carnival and Norwegian. I was not used, of course you have the ships that had the atriums, on Carnival, but that was amazing to me. And I just knew it was nowhere but up from there, or like MSC with the diamond staircase. Beautiful, to me. That's why I'd like to add this, Paul, as well. When people go on cruises for the first time and they go on the oldest ships in the fleet, and then they say cruising is not for them, no, the older ships are not for you. Cruising can absolutely be for you if you're on the right ship for your first time. So they'll say, hey, well, this was cheaper. Maybe wait and spend the extra, because sometimes it's a matter of like $200-300. And that's a lot of money. I understand that. But if that's going to be the difference between an extraordinary experience and a mediocre one, I would take the extraordinary. Because that ship absolutely makes a difference. When it comes to cabins, there's always the cabin class wars. No, just get on the ship. I'm a balcony cruiser. We always cruise balcony. But you best believe if I can grab an interior for $1,000 less, guess who's booking an interior?
So the final light or fun question, I call this the oddball question, and oddball in that it doesn't necessarily have to have anything to do with cruising. So let me first say you have a large following. So welcome to the many Round Trip Nat fans and friends listening. We hope.
And I'm appreciative of all my followers. I'm so thankful.
We hope your followers have enjoyed what they have heard at the Joy of Cruising podcast, and will come back for future episodes. Nathalie, so your fans can get to know you just a little better, share one thing that my listeners and your fans and friends don't know about Nathalie.
That I will travel by any means necessary. I will always find a way, and a way will always find me. I don't give up if I think that, oh, this is not possible. That thought of not possible has never crossed my mind. I'm going to go.
There you go. Nathalie, it has been great speaking with you. Best wishes on your new endeavor.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on the Joy of Cruising podcast. All the best in your travels. And as I like to say, we'll see you on the ocean.
We'll see you soon. And I look forward to meeting you one day.
Nathalie. Same here.
The Joy of Cruising and Cruising Interrupted, each $16.99 plus shipping, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again for $18.99, can be ordered at the link on thejoyofcruisingpodcast.com. For each of the 3 books, use the discount code Joy of Cruising Podcast and get $4 off. The Joy of Cruising books are also available at Amazon. Order the ebook at Amazon or your favorite online retailer. Stay in touch by joining the Joy of Cruising Podcast Facebook group or following the Joy of Cruising Podcast on Instagram. We're constantly adding new shows. Please leave a review and tell a friend about us. We hope you enjoyed this brief escape to the ocean. See you next week.